Hi everyone, welcome back to Eve Math Tutoring. Today's lesson is on Algebra, Solving Equations, Part 2. So in this lesson, I'm going to do a continuation of Part 1, where I was solving equations. So I'm just going to solve a few different examples for you. Now when you're given a question, it could say solve, or it could say solve the equation, or solve for a specific variable. Okay, so let's start off with this example here. So this could have said solve for h, or it could have said solve the equation, or just solve. Now, this one you can go ahead and solve it. You can bring all the variables to one side and all the numbers to the other. However, because there is a fraction, I like to eliminate them right from the beginning. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply everything by 3. And as long as you multiply everything in the equation by 3, you don't actually change the equation. And as long as you do the same thing to each one, then you're not changing the equation. So this becomes the following. Now you've eliminated your fractions. So what you're going to do is bring all the h's to one side, all the numbers to the other. And when you bring something over to the other side of the equation, what happens is that it changes sign. So if it's positive here, it becomes negative. If it's positive here, it becomes negative. So this, because these are like terms, we can go ahead and subtract. And then to solve for h, I'm going to divide both sides of the equation by 5. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do the same thing to the other. So my final answer is h equals -3. Okay? And if you want to check your answer to see if it's correct, you can always plug it into the original equation. And if your left side equals your right side, you end up with the same number on both sides after you plug this number into your h values, into your variables here, then that means you have the correct solution. Okay, so let's try a few more examples. So here's another example. T over 6 minus 7 over 12 minus 2t over 3 equals 5 over 6 minus 3t over 4. So here you're going to multiply everything in this equation by 12 because it is the lowest common multiple of all the numbers on the bottom and also the lowest common denominator of all your fractions. It divides all of these numbers, therefore it is the number you want to use. And as long as we multiply everything in the equation by that same number, we're not actually changing our equation. So we multiply everything by 12. So 12 divided by 6 is going to give us 2t. So then we just start to simplify. These will cancel. 12 divided by 3 is going to be 4 times 2 is going to be 8t. 12 divided by 6 is 2, times 5 is going to be 10. 12 divided by 4 is going to be 3, times 3 is going to be 9. So once we do that, now we can bring all of the variables to one side of the equation and all the numbers to the other side. Usually I try to make sure that the variable ends up positive and the so let's see, so if we bring this over here, that's going to be negative. So it looks like we're probably going to bring it over to this side here, but you could do that in any way. So minus 8t, this becomes a positive 9t since I moved it, and then the 7 becomes a positive since we moved it. So then 2t minus 8t plus 9t is going to give us 3t equal to 17, and then we divide both sides of the equation by 3, and then we get t equals 17 over 3, which is an improper fraction because the top number is bigger than the bottom. So we have to figure out how many times does this number go into this? Well, 5 times. What's left over? 2 out of 3. So that's our final answer. Okay. Say we have the following equation and we want to solve. So over here, our lowest common denominator is 12a. That's the number that would divide out 3 and 4, 12, and then a divides itself. So we multiply everything by 12a. This is an A. So now these cancel. 12 divided by 3 is 4, times 2 is 8. 12A. These two cancel. 12 divided by 4 is 3, times 3 is 9. So as you can see, we have the same equation as the top, except now it's expressed with no fractions, which makes it a little bit easier to solve. Okay? So then we're going to bring this over here. So 8 minus 9 equals 12a, negative 1 equals 12a. Divide both sides of the equation by 12, and you get your answer. Let's try a few other examples. Okay, our lowest common denominator here is going to be 20m. 20 is the number that divides 4, 25, and 10, and then m divides itself. So that's why we use 20m. So we multiply everything by 20m. So then this cancels this. 20 divided by 4 is 5, times 3 is 15. 20 divided by 20 is just, so that just equals 1. Sorry, the m doesn't cancel, the 20s do, so we end up with m. These cancel. 20 divided by 5 is 4, times 2 is 8. 20 divided by 10 is 2, times 3 is 6m. So now we're going to bring all the m's to one side, all the numbers to the other side. So 7m is equal to 7. Divide both sides of the equation by 7, and you get m equals to 1 as your final answer. Okay, so that would be your final answer there. Here, our lowest common denominator is going to be 6. We're going to multiply everything in this equation by 6. And that is going to be to eliminate all of the fractions. So when we do that, 6 divided by 2 is 3, times 4a minus 1. 6 plus 6 divided by 3 is 2a minus 2. And then you can multiply everything in. So this becomes 12a minus 3, 6 plus 2a minus 4. Then you can bring all the a's to one side and all of the numbers to the other. So 12a minus 2a is equal to 6 minus 4 plus 3. So then 10a is equal to 5. So then dividing both sides of the equation by 10, you end up with 5 over 10. And then if you divide the top and the bottom excuse me, of the fraction by 5, then you get a equals 1/2 as your answer. Okay. Lowest common denominator is 15, so we multiply everything by 15. So when we do that, we get 45. 15 divided by 3 is 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. 10n negative 5 times negative 5 is plus 25. 15n negative 9n plus 6. So bringing all the n's to one side of the equation and the numbers to the other side. 45 plus 25 plus, minus 6 is equal to 15n minus 9n plus 10n. So then it becomes 64 is equal to 16n. Divide both sides of the equation by 16. N equals 4. So that would be our answer for this equation. We'll try a few more examples. This one, the lowest common denominator is b plus 2. So over here we get 4 minus 12, which is negative 8 equals to b. That's our final answer. I'm going to try one more example. Lowest common denominator is 5q, q minus 2. That will divide out the 5, the q minus 2, and the q. So we multiply both sides by the lowest common denominator. When we do that, these two cancel. We're left with 3q, 5 q's cancel, we're left with 9q minus 18. So this can go over here and that can go over there. 18 is equal to 6q, 3 is equal to q is our final answer. Okay, so that's solving equations. Just a few extra examples with fractions. So you want to eliminate the fractions, you want to multiply everything in your equation. You want to multiply by something that that will eliminate all the denominators, and that is your lowest common denominator. So you look at the denominators and you look at what would divide out all of them. So it has to include all parts. So the variables have to be able to be divided out by, and all as well as the numbers. So in this case, we want to make sure our lowest common denominator includes the number 5, and that's the smallest number we need to divide these both out. And we only write that down once. You don't have to write it more than once. And then because this one has a q, however this one doesn't, we still have to include it in our lowest common denominator. And then over here, this one here has a q minus 2, and this one doesn't. So we do have to include that in our lowest common denominator as well. Okay, so that's how you do that one. Now if we just go back to the other example, here it was just b plus 2. These ones are, if it's not written over anything, there's always a 1 underneath the number. So for these two, I mean, it's just a 1, so that one's pretty obvious. But if you look at this one, it's not as obvious. So this would be the lowest common denominator. Okay, so I hope that helps you get a little bit more practice for solving different types of equations.